the ultimate guide to cinematic lighting. Whether you're shooting on your iPhone or a pro level camera, whether you're a beginner or you're advanced. Let's dive into the first session and talk about budget setups for your iPhone. But feel free to skip around in the chapters and see what lighting setup you want to learn first. So we've got camera, iPhone, microphone, the Hollyland Lark Mark II. Now we need lighting. And for this first setup, since it's the cheapest setup, I'm actually just going to use this window here in my office as my key light. You can do this really easily by just having a large window that creates a large source, and you can put some sheer curtains in front of it that you probably already have at your house. So let's set up this talking head shot. This is the simplest, cheapest setup that you can use. And this still looks really nice and could be an awesome YouTube video. So this was setup number 1. And you'll notice with how I've positioned myself from the window, I didn't directly face the window, but you could if you wanted really nice flat lighting across my whole face. I actually kind of placed the camera at about a 45-degree angle from the window so that the window can give a little bit of this angle on my face to give some dimension so that there's some shadow on this side of my face. Now let's start to level up this setup, increase the quality, and add in small pieces of gear that are still super affordable, but you'll notice how big of an impact these will make on this scene. Our next piece of gear is this little small rig light that's only 50 bucks on Amazon. It has 4 different little colors that you can use, and it will display different shapes on the background. So let's set this light up. You can find different ways to mount this or just angle it to where it will spill onto the background. Even if you don't have another stand or another tripod to mount this to, you can still find ways to prop this up and let it shine on your background. So let's do that now. So I just simply propped that up on the shelf that I have in the background, and you can see that this just adds more dimension and texture to our video as a whole. So we just leveled up how this video looks by adding a background light that was only $50. And this little $50 light comes with 20 different little gobo shapes you can put in, has the different colors, it's super affordable, and look how much that added just to the background of this one video. Let's take this same scene and upgrade it one more time. You'll notice that in the background, I have a little small tube light over in the corner. This is actually a full-time filmmaker gear corner tube light, and it's only $90 on Amazon. It comes with this little remote, and you can actually change the color temperature of the light. So let's just turn this on, and you can see you've got your full range of colors. You can make it really blue, or you can make it really warm. Let's just make it really cool, for example. Now, look how much that leveled up this whole scene. So we're using the window as a key light. Now we have a nice backlight coming in from the opposite side, and we have a really cool design on our background using the small rig light. So you're easily looking at a setup right now that's only maybe $300, and this is really high quality and could be an awesome YouTube video. But you might be thinking, okay, this is great and all, but what if it's not daylight and I can't use the window as a key light? Well, let's keep going, increase our budget just a little bit, still under that $1,000 range, and let's do a different setup. I'm gonna black out these windows and show you what you can use as a key light. Still super budget-friendly options. So let's move to scene number 2. All right, let's talk about scene number 2. I turned on the nasty overhead light in the room just so that I can show you what I'm about to do so we can get our lighting set up. Again, we're on the iPhone, using the tripod, we're using the same mic, but we're gonna redo our lighting based off the fact that I just blacked out this window. So we can't use the window as a key light anymore, so now we need some key light solutions that are still really budget friendly. So here's our first budget friendly key light option. This is the Aperture B7C bulb. It's only $70 on Amazon, and you can make this light bulb any color. You can dim it, you can adjust it, however you might need for your scene. So I'm going to make this a 5000 Kelvin color temperature and treat it like we would the window, and I'm gonna put it in a lamp and use it as a key light. So this is one of the most budget-friendly ways to have a key light. You can buy this bulb, you probably have a lamp around your house. All it needs to be is a lamp that has like a white or a cream shade, and that's going to diffuse the light to make it a softer source. So let's get that set up and I'll show you what it looks like. So this is the lamp that I have at my house. You can see it has like a white shade that's kind of large, and this will create a softer light than just shining the bulb directly on you. So we're gonna set that up on this side of the desk on the corner. We can get that plugged in, and we'll insert our light bulb. Now, I've got the light bulb in the lamp. I set the intensity to 100%, and I've got the color temperature set at 5000. And what you wanna do with your key light is kind of have it as close to you as you can to create that soft light on your face. But you can see here that I didn't really want it in frame, so I pushed it back just a little bit to get it out of frame. If you wanted the light in frame, it won't hurt anything, and you can get the light closer to you to create more light on your face and also for it to be a little bit softer. But honestly, this light looks so good just how it is. So right now, all I'm using is my iPhone, the microphone, the tripod, and this lamp with the light bulb in it. And this could be a really nice YouTube video. But let's actually add in those two lights we had in our last scene to just level this up. And now we have a really nice 3-point lighting setup. We have our key light, our hair light, and a background light. So you can achieve this awesome looking setup just with the affordable lights and affordable microphone. And no one would probably even know that this was shot on an iPhone. I'm even like amazing myself by looking at these clips while I'm doing this as I'm changing the scene up. The results are so good, and they're only going to be even better once I edit them. So obviously you're looking at the edited product. This looks really nice, doesn't it? It's really nice. But anyway, let's complete this video by doing our 2 final upgrades. And that's just going to be to upgrade our key light. So this is, again, one of the most budget ways to have a key light is to put the aperture bulb inside of a lamp. The next upgrade is the Aputure Amaran T2C tube light. I believe it's only like $200 on Amazon, and it's a really versatile light. It comes with a battery attachment, or you can power it, and you can make it whatever color you might need. So again, I'm gonna set this up, get my 2-foot tube light, set it to 5,000 Kelvin, and replace this lamp, and then we can see a before and after. Also, like, complete side note, but you can use this little bulb without it being plugged into anything because it can also be charged, and that's just really, really awesome. Okay, so this is the Aputure T2C. I literally have it on 15%. This is a really powerful light, and I kind of have it angled. I'm using a C-stand for this, and I know C-stands are expensive, so you could find different ways that you could mount this. You could buy a cheaper light stand. So the point is not necessarily the stand I'm using to do this, it's just the fact that this is really affordable and you can do this. You can even do it with a cheaper light stand or however you could figure out to mount it. I have it in kind of the same place as the lamp, where it's over to this side a little bit so that I get a little bit of shadow on this side of my face. So what do you think? This is a before and after. And the quality should be a little bit better because I'm able to get it above me, whereas with the lamp, it was almost on the same plane as me. And when your light's above you, it tends to give a little bit of shadow underneath your chin and different areas like that. It creates a little bit more dimension to the face. Now, if you want an even better key light, we can switch over to the 4-foot tube from Amaran that I think is only about $330 on Amazon. So let's give it a comparison. Now, this is with the 4-foot tube, which is a really bright light. I still only have this one only on 15%, but you can see just how much of a difference this makes. So here's a side-by-side comparison of our 3 different key lights. So comment below which one was your favorite and what you think about all of these setups. I have links in the description to all of the gear that I talked about in this video. Go check it out. Maybe one of these will be the perfect budget option so that you can get started making YouTube videos. Now that we've talked through some full cinematic setups using your iPhone, let's talk about how your key light can dramatically change the entire vibe and feeling of your video. This next session's about key light placement. Key light placement can completely change how your video looks. In this video, I'm going to be using one light for this entire setup and strictly show you what different key light placements do and how it affects your video to move your light around, raise it up and down, and see what different effects it actually has on your video. Because once you know how to achieve different lighting looks, even if it's only with that one key light, you can dramatically change how your video looks depending on your environment, what scene you're trying to create, and what feeling you want your video to have. So let's talk about it. The one light that I'll be using for this entire video is the Amaran F22X. I have both layers of diffusion installed over the panel along with the lantern attachment. So this is going to give us a nice big soft source to accomplish all of these different looks. First of all, let's talk about shooting on the shadow side or the light side. This can be called far side or near side key lighting. So think about this, if I was sitting this way, the camera is to my right, I'm looking in this direction. So we're thinking about this as if we were shooting like an interview setup or a setup that's a like a scene from a movie, something like that, where it's not necessarily a person that's looking straight at the camera, because a completely straight on shot, this wouldn't necessarily apply. But even with straight on shots, sometimes you generally have a direction in that you're kind of sitting. You're not always necessarily just completely boxed up to the camera, so this really does kind of apply in this scenario. So if we were to do near side lighting or have the camera on the light side of the face, that would look like this, where the light is on this side and the camera is pointing at the bright side of my face versus the dark side. Now, you can use this technique for certain scenarios, but a lot of times it looks way better to shoot on the shadow side. That's what they do in movies, and it achieves a more dramatic look if you shoot on the shadow side. So let's swap our light to the other side and you can see the difference. Okay, so now you can see that we've swapped our light from this side of the frame to this side of the frame. So if I was back in kind of my position of this is my line of sight, you can now see that the camera is actually shooting on the dark side of my face, which gives it more dimension. It kind of makes it look more defined and gives a lot more visual interest in the frame. So here's a before and after of shooting on the shadow side of the face or the light side of the face. There's different use cases for both, but the most widely used is to shoot on the shadow side of the face. Now let's move into some different lighting placements. All of these different styles can be used in different scenarios depending on what you're trying to achieve for your scene. Let's start off with some really flat lighting. Sometimes this can be considered high key, but there are definitely use case scenarios for using straight on flat lighting. So to achieve this, we're just gonna put the light directly behind the camera and almost at eye line. So this is with the light just directly behind the camera, and it's kind of eye lined with me. So it's lighting up all of this underneath my chin. It's lighting up everything about my face. My face looks pretty flat. Now, there is a technique to this. Sometimes, of course, it may make sense for the scene or whatever type of lighting that you're trying to motivate off of. For instance, if you were at a laptop, it would make sense for the light to be coming in front of you rather than from the side. So front lighting has a time and place just like side lighting does. A lot of times front lighting like this is used for beauty lighting, but to do that they actually raise the light up a little bit to create a little bit of shadow under the chin and to define the cheekbones a little bit more. So let's raise the light up and see what that looks like. So you can see now I still have a high key lighting. It's nice and flat, nice and even across my whole face, but now it's providing a little bit of shadow underneath my chin, and it's kind of defining my cheekbones a little bit more. This is what's called beauty lighting, and a lot of times they'll use this to create that nice, soft, bright lighting on, say, a model's face. So if you need a scene that's very clean looking, maybe you're shooting someone who's a little bit older, who has a lot of wrinkles, a front lighting style like this might help to kind of cover up some of those blemishes and wrinkles. Because the more shadow you tend to add to the face, the more it's gonna make those types of blemishes and things stand out. So there is a time and a place for clean looking, high key, bright environment type front lighting. But let's go back and compare it to side lighting. So let's move the light over to the side. Now you can see for this shot, I've moved the light over about 45 degrees from the camera to the left, but I also brought it back down to where it's eye level with me. Now watch what this does to the image. We're getting nice shadow on this side of my face, and we're almost achieving like that Rembrandt triangle look, but because I have it too low, it's also kind of lighting up underneath the chin and just kind of giving some unflattering light in places where you may not want it. So to really achieve a full Rembrandt look, we want to actually raise that light up. So let's do that. So we kept the light in that same position about 30 or 45 degrees off from the camera, but we've raised it up. So now you can see a before and after of having the light lower or raising it up to fully give that shadow underneath the chin and really define the face. We're getting a nice Rembrandt triangle on this side, which is a very popular style for Hollywood. You'll find this in a ton of movies. They'll be giving that nice Rembrandt style lighting. I use Rembrandt almost all of the time. This is my traditional typical setup. I'm shooting on kind of the shadow side of the face, and I'm usually doing some sort of Rembrandt with the key light positioned about 45 degrees off from the camera and then elevated up so that it's shining down, not too harshly, not overhead lighting, but just enough to give that nice shadow underneath the chin. It also creates a nice little nose shadow, and that's kind of how you can gauge if you have it too high or not. Now let's move on to overhead lighting. Now, as it sounds, for this type of lighting, the light is literally overhead. So this can give more of an ambient feeling. It can spill light onto more of the area of the room. in more of an even distribution, and this can be a really natural way to just get a lot of light into the room as a whole while also lighting your subject. It can also be used for several different styles. So you'll see here that I'm getting the beginnings of kind of some eyeshadow where you can't see my eyes quite as clearly. If we move the light back, you can almost get that kind of villain look, which is a technique that they sometimes use in movies to create like a more sinister character, or that feeling of like you don't really know the person because you can't really see their eyes and make that connection. So let's see what that looks like if we move the light back. So you can see this provides a really unique looking lighting setup. I look more mysterious of a person because of this lighting style. And this is all about placement. It's the same light, is set at the same percentage of brightness, but the scene can look totally different based on where you place that light. Then if I were to move this light more forward, it would go back to just kind of being a nice fill light for the space and for me. And this is what it looks like with overhead lighting that's a little bit in front. So it almost gives just a nice overall lighting on everything in the space. And it tends to look pretty natural because most lights are in the ceiling, and so this direction of light can look really, really natural for whatever scene you might be doing. You can also light from underneath if you're really trying to give that kind of spooky feeling, you know, like the flashlight in the ghost stories where you used to kind of shine, make your face look spooky. You can do lighting from underneath to get that kind of look. Another style of side lighting that we talked about earlier is doing a complete half and half where you have the light at a 90-degree angle from the person. So that gives one half of their face in light and one half of their face in shadow. This is a really dramatic look that you could use, again, depending on your setup and your scene. So the point of this whole video has been to really show you that it's not just about buying a big, huge key light. It's about knowing where to place it in the frame. Just like this example. To me, this is not super great lighting. I'm lighting up everything. I'm getting a glare on my glasses, but if I just, I got me a nice light, here we go, I'm gonna film, and I just set it up randomly, this is the result that you might get. But if you know to move it over a little bit, raise it up, we can achieve this, which is a much nicer looking shot, in my opinion. Anyway, I know this was a shorter video, but I wanted to make this because I think key light placement is so important. Before you add anything else into your scene, cool accent lights, tube lights, background lights, hair lights, it's important that you know where to put your key light to achieve the look that you're going for. If you're wanting a completely bright scene that looks like daylight in the room and everything is very bright, then you might want to do a little bit of front lighting to kind of have that nice high key lighting that's even. But if you're wanting something more moody, where it's kind of, you've got your colored tube lights going on, you've got your cool lamp or your sunset lamp going in the background, then you might want to learn how to do some nice Rembrandt lighting, kind of like what we have right now. That's going to add some more shadow, it's going to add some dimension to the face, and really bring to life your vision for the video. Now that we've mastered key light placement, you might be wondering, but I'm stuck in a super small space and I just don't know how I can get a cinematic setup in my cluttered tiny room. This next session is all about utilizing the space that you have, even if it's a small, tiny, cluttered office, and turning that into a cinematic setup. And it's all on a budget, and in this instance, I use my iPhone to show you how to do this. Setup number one, I need to figure out what angle I want to do. I'm only going to be using this little Lifetime chair that's already in the room. And I'm thinking for this first shot, I'm gonna use the window as my key light. So we wanna place the chair somewhere where I can use the window, maybe right here. And now let's figure out where our camera angle needs to be. So let's come over here. I'm gonna position the chair to where it's pointing into this corner of the room, and we'll see what our angle is looking like. I'm gonna bring the chair just a little bit closer. Now let's record a test clip and see what this looks like. With the room lights on, all I've done is set up the tripod in this angle of the room. The first thing we need to do to make this more cinematic is to upgrade the audio. That way people actually want to listen to this video. So I'm just going to plug this in. This is the Hollyland Lark Mark II. We're going to plug in the adapter. Now we should be getting a lot higher quality audio coming from this wireless mic. This is just one that I own. They make cheaper ones. They make really budget-friendly ones. They also have a Hollyland Lark A1 specifically for iPhone and smartphone filmmaking. So find a cheap wireless mic to upgrade the quality of your video. So the next step in making this scene more cinematic is to turn off these lights in the room so we can start using the window as our key light. Turning off the lights in the room is going to be able to help you control the light so that you can control the color temperature, the direction, and get a more cinematic look out of your footage. So now, since I'm sitting in front of the window, we can use this window as a key light. And already we're starting to get a more cinematic look because we're starting to control the environment. Our next step is to kind of clean up our frame and figure out what we actually want in the background of our scene. So I'm just going to start clearing stuff out of the frame so that we can make this look a little bit nicer. So I'm just going to move some of this stuff over. And this is what we have so far. I moved some things in the background, just set things on the floor, got them out of view of the camera angle, and I turned on this lamp just to kind of add something to the background. So far, the only thing that we have really added to this scene is the microphone. But let's add a few more pieces of gear and see how much we can actually level up this scene. I'm going to exchange this regular bulb in the lamp for the Aperture B7C bulb. This is a super affordable little light that you can make any color. So let's swap that out real quick. So now, since we can control the light, I set it to more of a daylight temperature because we're wanting this to be, for our first setup, we want this to be a bright kind of daylit type environment. So for this to be a bright scene, we need to add one more light. This is the FTF Gear tube light. It's super affordable, it's only $90 on Amazon, and its color temperature is adjustable. So we can set this up in frame, see how this is looking. Going to angle it a little bit. And let's set the color temperature. It comes with this little remote so that you can adjust the color temperature. So I'm just going to match the color of this lamp so that we're making everything kind of feel like daylight. And this is our final setup for scene 1. We've created a nice daylight setup that feels bright, clean, and minimal. And we're using the window as our key light. We've added a couple of lights in the background to kind of brighten up the room as a whole. We've upgraded our audio, and we have created a really nice looking setup, even in this really small room. Now, another way to level this up and make it look a little bit more cinematic is if you have this ability on your iPhone, switch to the cinematic video mode. This is going to add a little bit more of a cinematic look to your video and give you a little bit more blurry background to work with. So this is setup number 1. Let's now take this same setup but make it moody. We're gonna act like it's nighttime, so I'm going to block out this window and create a really dark, moody scene. So we've now blacked out the room. I know this is probably a super dark shot, but we have blackout curtains, so I've already made this dark, so we're gonna pretend like it's nighttime. So now we need to set up a key light for this shot. Okay, so for this setup, what I've done is stack these boxes right here, and then I've put the B7 bulb inside this lamp to act as the key light. I swapped the tube light to the opposite side so that it's diagonal from the key light. I moved the table out of the way so that we could have more of a clean shot into the corner and we wouldn't have all of that white from the table reflecting the light so that we could have a moodier setup. Now I'm going to add in this small rig flashlight to cast a design on this blank wall over here. So I'm just going to literally prop it on this table, which is right outside of frame, and have it display a shape on that wall. So we have the camera in the same position, but this is our moody setup. This is replicating if it was nighttime, there was no light coming in from the window. Instead, I've stacked these boxes, put this lamp on top to act as my key light. I swapped the tube light to the opposite side, and I'm casting a little bit of light on this other wall to kind of add some texture to the scene. So this is setup number 2. We transformed it into a more moody looking setup. And this is just another variation where we've moved the tube light over a little bit and also dimmed it down just a little. And you could easily transform this setup into a desk setup. So let's do that as our third and final setup. So I've placed the white table here as our quote desk. Now I've just got to put the lamp here so that it's closer to us as the key light. I'm going to put our flashlight on this little bitty tripod. I'm going to place one of our boxes right here behind our chair. so that we can prop our flashlight on it to shine this design on the background. And here you have our final desk setup for this space. You can see how all of these different little budget pieces of gear make such a huge difference in making your video look cinematic. If you compare this to our first shot that we took in this room, you can see what a huge difference it makes to place the gear, to have the gear that you can control the environment, control how it looks, what the color is, what the color temperature is. And even if you are having to film at night, you're stuck in a tiny home office, a room that's cluttered, the junk room, the random room in your house, you can still make that look really nice if you use these budget pieces of gear and you use some basic lighting principles. Now that we've conquered a small space and knowing how to set up a cinematic scene, let's transition to a more advanced indoor interview setup. So this is our current setup. I have him positioned to where his head is going to be in this empty space. That way it doesn't look like there's anything like growing out of his head. And it's always good to make sure that you're looking at your background. So if I had kind of positioned him here, he would have had this directly behind his head, and that might be distracting during the video. So instead, I positioned him here where you have decoration on both sides, but his head will actually fill in this little empty space on the wall. Then we've got our Amaran F22X light panel. This is with both layers of diffusion and then the lantern attachment. And I have that flagged off with the skirt to only spill in this direction. Should give him a nice Rembrandt with it being about 45 degrees and above him. It should give him that nice Rembrandt triangle on that side. We've got audio. This is the Rode NTG microphone. Super affordable, still sounds really good. This is an Aperture T2C light as the hair light. I turned on these practical lamps in the background just to give some glow on these chairs. Adding something like this in the background that's natural makes a huge difference. And then I also brought in this 4-foot tube over here to cast a warm glow on this side of the room. So this is with and without that light. So this makes it appear as if there's a lamp on this side of the room that you can't see outside of frame to match the lamps on the other side of the room. Something that I need to change is the white balance of this hair light to match the lamp, because they're going to see the lamps behind him, and it's going to make sense for his hair light to be the same color because it's going to look like those lamps are shining on his back and his hair. So let's change this color temperature. There, now that's going to match much better. Let's flip these blinds. Can't reach it. Oh. Short people problems. So, just a little tip. When you have blinds like this, if you flip them to be up, it's going to spill the light onto the ceiling. If you flip them to be down, it's gonna pull that light on the floor. So I don't know if you noticed, and I'm not jumping to reach the string again, but beforehand it was making a pool of the bluish daylight right here, but now it's making it on the ceiling. So in the shot, it's not gonna be near as noticeable as it was before. So always make sure if you have blinds and you can't, remove the blinds from the shot, you can't do a different angle where the window is not there, always try to make sure that you just point them a different direction and see what works best for your video. And that's what each light looks like. Of course, I'm gonna have to make some little changes once he actually gets in here. I may have to adjust for his height, I may have to move some of the lights around just a little bit, but this is the general setup of where everything will be. So then from there, it's just making little bitty tweaks once you actually get the person in here to film. And you can dial in intensity. Some of the lights may be a little bit too bright right now. You have to make sure that you're matching like their skin tone. Some people's skin tends to be brighter on camera. Some people's skin is darker on camera. So you might have to adjust the lights once you get them all set up. But this is just the general placement of all the lights in the room. And now we'll see what it looks like once he gets in here. Oh, and I forgot to mention, I also might throw in a side angle right here. That way it will be at a little bit of an offset from the main angle. So I might throw a side angle there. I haven't decided yet, but if I do, it will be this camera, so I'll figure out how to film some clips to show that if I do that. So this is what that second angle will look like. This will be a tighter shot with him aligned on this left side facing this way, and it'll just be a close-up of his face. So that's the setup so far. Let's see what each light is doing and we can see what the frame looks like as a finished product. Anyway, that was just a quick look at a little behind the scenes of me setting up an interview video. This is pretty much my process every time. It's very similar to this. Have a key light, have a hair light, do some practicals, and then an accent light of some sort. So this is pretty much how I do lighting most of the time, but I just thought it might be interesting for you guys to see my process, actually see it in action, and hopefully this inspires you to be able to create some better lighting for your videos or have some new ideas for your videos. Now that we've learned the basics of a really good indoor interview, let's take our final step into a really advanced scene, taking this bright daylit scene into this nighttime moonlit scene. Let's go through step by step how I set up this scene and what each of these lights are actually doing to create this moonlit, kind of moody, cozy home scene. Step 1 is going to be to turn off these overhead lights. Now that we've turned off the overhead lights in the room, you can see that the only light we have coming in is from these 2 windows that we're going to need to black out so that we can create a nighttime looking scene. So let's black out the windows, bring in all of our lighting equipment, and start getting this scene set up. Okay, switch to my iPhone because I'm using both of my main cameras because this is a 2-camera setup. This is for an interview that I'm doing. It's actually for a life group lesson at my church. So he'll be talking directly to camera, and then I have a camera off to the side to get a second angle. So my first thought for this room is I wanted to try something completely different and do more of a warm key light with cool hair light and kind of do a moonlit type environment because that's something that I haven't tried before. So here was my initial thought process. These lamps right here are a really warm, probably like a 2500 Kelvin color temperature. And I wanted to motivate that because you would see that in the background of the video. So I motivated the key light off of those lamps and made my key light actually be 3500 Kelvin, and it's actually at 30% intensity. So this is the Amaran F22X with the lantern attachment. So I made that a little bit warmer than I normally would because I'm motivating it off of the lamps in the background. Visuals, when they're in frame like that, practicals, your brain kind of thinks, oh, he's being lit by those lamps in the background because those are the lights that I see in the room. It's just something that your brain kind of does when you see a scene. Then from there, I had to black out the windows. I got a taller person than me to do that. And my next light that was going to be important was I brought in my backlight, but I kind of changed some stuff. So in hindsight, I would have done it in a different order. Here's the next important light. This Amaran T4C tube, right over here in the corner, I have a grid on it, as you can see, just so I can direct the light to point a slash of light kind of over the arm of this chair in this direction in the room. I did that because I wanted that to act as moonlight coming in from this window. So I kind of placed it up high, acting like a shaft of moonlight, and moonlight is kind of that blue color. Then that actually changed what I was going to do with this backlight, which is this is the Amaran T2C. So now that we have moonlight coming in through a window, I'm going to motivate the backlight off of that blue light that they're seeing in the frame. So that's why I made this a more blue color temperature so that it would shine on him as a backlight and hair light motivated off of the moonlight. Then just to add a little bit more to the scene, I actually put a Aperture T4C behind the couch just to give a little glow on the wall, kind of up, just adds ever so slightly. It really adds little lights like this when you get into accenting and you're just starting to kind of build out. You've got your main lights. You know, we could have just had this setup be a key light and a backlight and thrown some moonlight. But when you start really adding in practicals that they can see, a little glow behind the couch, it really starts to kind of level up the production value. So from there, we have 2 more little lights right over here to the side. We've got this light right here, which is a little Aperture MT Pro, And I have that kind of set to like that blue color just to shine in this corner and kind of on this tree, because we have the second angle that points right at this wall. So we needed to kind of fill in some more blue so that it looks like this blue is shining all the way across the room. And then for our last light, this is the small rig flashlight, and I have it set to blue with just one of these little designs in. And my reason for that is it just kind of throws a little bit more blue on this wall, gives the appearance that there could be a window over here, just like the window over there, that could also be casting light through a tree, kind of creating some dapples of blue across the space. So that was my thought process in placing each one of these lights. You could easily just come in here and set up a key light and a backlight and turn nothing else on, and it still looked nice, but I wanted to create a scene that looked purposeful and kind of didn't look like it was being lit by lights. I wanted it to feel natural, like the lamp was just lighting him up, there's moonlight in the room, and there's not any, quote, video lights going on. So to make a scene feel more natural, you need to have some lights in shot, be able to motivate your key light or your backlight off of those lights so that it actually feels like it occurred naturally. So you would do the same thing if you were doing a daylight setup and there was sun coming through a window. You could put your key light on that side of the frame where that sun is coming from and kind of match the color and everything so that it would feel like the sun is what's lighting you. It makes it feel natural when you motivate your placed lights off of naturally occurring lights. And in this case, all I had to work with were the lamps in this room. But I motivated the key light off of that, and then I faked the window. There is a window right there, but since we're filming during the day, I had to fake it being nighttime by blacking them out and then putting a light there to look like moonlight. Then, as far as cameras go, I'm using a 2-camera setup. This is our main angle. This is the Sony a7C II with the Blazar Mantis 35mm T2.0. We've got our angle right here, you can see. And then for our second angle, we've got my Sony FX3 with the Blazar Apex 50mm. So I went anamorphic for both of these cameras because I wanted this to really feel like a movie set almost. I wanted it to feel really well lit, and I also wanted it to look really cinematic, which anamorphic definitely accomplishes that. So this is just to give you an example of kind of what this frame is looking like. So now let's break down each light one at a time. This is with just the key light. This is with the key light and those 2 lamps in the background. Now we add in our Amaran T4C as our shaft of moonlight. Then we can motivate our backlight, which is the Amaran T2C, off of the moonlight. We'll add the subtle glow behind the couch, which is another Amaran T4C. We'll add the Aperture MT Pro over in the corner to light up and give a little bit more blue to that second angle, where you can see it may not make a huge difference on the main angle, but for the second angle, it definitely makes a difference. And then our last light is the little moonlight dapple effect from the small rig flashlight. And this is our final setup. So that was just a quick walkthrough of how I achieved this really cool moonlit setup. I had tons of fun doing this, and really crafting a scene and putting the lighting to where it really creates a feeling in the video is so much fun to do, and it levels up the quality of your video tremendously.